Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Shalom, Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, Salam Kebajikan.
The Honorable Chairman of the Organizing Committee, Mr. Muhammad Muzakir, SOS MA, PhD.
The Honorable Dean Faculty of Social Sciences and Law, Universitas Negeri Surabaya, Mr. Profesor Dr. Burhamat Turhaniani, MA.
The Honorable Vice Rector of Universitas Negeri Surabaya, Profesor Dr. Bambang Yulianto, MPD.
The Honorable Speaker, Ms. Profesor Dr. Aisyah Endah Palupi from Indonesian Cultural and Educational Attaché in Philippines and also lectures in Universitas Negeri Surabaya.
Mr. Dr. Azhar Ibrahim from Department Malay Studies, University of Singapore.
Mr. Dr. Asmil Mohtayib from School of Social Sciences, University Science Malaysia.
And last, Dr. Satra Kiupeng from Faculty of Law, Taksin University, Thailand. Good morning and welcome for all the lecturers, presenters, and participants of the
Second International Conference of Social Sciences and Law 2022 with the topic Rethinking the Transformation of Society in Post-Pandemic, Contribution of Social Sciences, Education and Law to Social Welfare.
This conference held on 10 September 2022 and conducted by Faculty of Social Sciences and Law, Universitas Negeri Surabaya.
Ladies and gentlemen, I am Meldidan Oni Hamzah with my partner here,
Graciela Natasha Lekton Pesi.
Delighted to be your master ceremony for this event.
Before we start, allow us to inform you about our agenda for today. At the beginning, we will be singing the national anthem Indonesia Raya and followed by a recitation prayer. There will be also a welcoming speech from the chairman of the organizing committee and vice rector of Universitas Negeri Surabaya and continued with our plenary session. At the end, there will be also an awarding session and closing.
Ladies and gentlemen, before we start, we would like to remind you to please mute your mic and turn on your camera. You may unmute when the committee requires you to do so. Now, we are going to start by singing the national anthem, Indonesia Raya. All the audience in the room are kindly requested to stand up, and for all the audience joining from home, kindly requested to sit properly.
Please have a seat. We will continue with recitation prayer. The prayer will be led by Dr. Agus Mahfud Fauzi, SAG, MSI. To Mr. Agus Mahfud Fauzi, time is yours.
warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Ladies and gentlemen, let's pray to our God in order our activity, namely International Conference of Social Science and Law, be running well. Forgive me, I'll lead this prayer with Muslim style. Allahumma sholli ala Muhammad wa ala ali Muhammad wa sallim radhiyallahu ta'ala an kulli sahabatin rasulil jamin walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin hamdan hamidin hamdan syakirin hamdan yafi ni'ma majidah ya rabbana lakal hamdu kama yanbaghi li jalali wa tikmali sultanik rabbana zalamna anfusana wa illam taghfir lana wa tarhamna lanakunanna minal khasirin. Allahumma fir lana warhamna kama rabbayana shaghira. Allahumma inna nas'aluka ilman nafi'an wa rizqan wasi'an. Allahumma inna nas'aluka salamatan fid din wa afiatan fil jasad wa ziyadatan fil ilmina wa barakatan fil rizqina wa taubatan qabla maut wa rahmatan 'indal maut wa maghfiratan ba'dal maut hawin 'alaina fi sakaratil maut wan najata minan nari wal afa indal hisaba. Allahumma anzilna munzalan mubarakan wa anta khairul munzilin. Allahumma anzilna munzalan mubarakan wa anta khairul munzilin. Allahumma arinal haqqa haqqa warzuqna tibaa wa arinal batila batila warzuqna tinaba. Rabbana taqabbal minna innaka antas samiul alim. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun wa salamun alal mursalin walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Al-Fatihah. A'udzubillahi minasyaitonir rajim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin arrahmanir rahim maliki yaumiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in ihdinas siratal mustaqim. Siratal ladzina an'amta 'alaihim ghairil maghdubi 'alaihim waladdallin. Amin. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you to Mr. Agus Mahmud Fauzi for the blissful recitation prayers. Next, we will be hearing a welcoming speech from the chairman of the organizing committee. We would like to invite Mr. Muhammad Muzakir Estos MA PhD. To Mr. Muhammad Muzakir, time is yours.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and very good morning to all. The Honorable, the Vice Rector for Academic Affairs, Universitas Negeri Surabaya, the Honorable Dean of Faculty of Social Sciences and Law, Universitas Negeri Surabaya, the Honorable all speakers of the Second International Conference of Social Science and Law 2022, the Honorable all presenter and all committee of Second ICCL 2022. Ladies and gentlemen, in the last 2.5 years, the world society has encountered the same global issue, namely COVID-19. The global pandemic has had a tremendous impact on human life in the world. In the response to that situation, the Second International Conference on Social Science and Law 2022 raised the theme Rethinking the Transformation of Post-Pandemic Society, Contribution of Social Science, Education, and Law to Social Welfare. For that purpose, we invite 4 keynote speakers from different institutions. The first speaker, Professor Dr. Aisyah Palupi. She is the Education and Culture Attaché of Republic Indonesia in Manila, Philippines. The second speaker, Dr. Asmil Tayyib, from the School of Social Science, University Science Malaysia. The third speaker, Dr. Azhar Ibrahim, from Department of Malay Studies, National University of Singapore. And the last speaker, Dr. Satra Kepang from the Faculty of Law, Taksin University, Thailand. International conference organized by the Faculty of Social Science and Law Universitas Negeri Surabaya will be attended by 50 presenters. The presenters came from various universities and different countries. They will present and share the study findings related to the topic of conference. Finally, we highly expect that the conference can be productive academic space. And the last, we would like to thank you for all the stakeholders who support this conference. Thank you very much, and we are welcoming to all the presenters to present their paper in this conference. And happy conference. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you to Mr. Muhammad Muzakir SOS MA PhD for the speech. Next, we would like to invite Vice Rector for Academic Affairs of Universitas Negeri Surabaya, Profesor Dr. Bambang Yulianto MPD. To Profesor Dr. Bambang Yulianto MPD, time is yours.
I am Professor Bambang Julianto, Vice Rector for Academic Affairs. International Chain Conference is our commitment to encourage academicians and faculty members to enhance innovation and collaboration through research. The International Chain Conference provides a space for scholars, researchers, and practitioners to share and exchange their novel insights and inspire new direction of research and application relevant with the post-pandemic situation. And also, it is expanding network among scholars and strengthening institutional academic collaboration. It is in line with university's strategic plan that by 2025, we hope to be a recognized teaching university in the region. Welcome to State University of Surabaya, Universitas Negeri Surabaya, UNESA. We are committed to enhancing our academic contribution and collaboration to build sustainable development for our community and humanity. Thank you.
Thank you to Mr. Professor Dr. Bambang Yulianto MPD for the speech.
Ladies and gentlemen, in a moment, we are going to continue to the plenary session. This plenary session will be held in two sessions and led by our moderators. The first session moderator is Ms. Jauhar Wahyuni M.Ecom.
Ms. Jauhar Wahyuni M.Ecom was graduated from Universitas Brawijaya on her master's degree in 2016. She is currently lecturing in Communication Major, Faculty of Social Sciences and Law, Universitas Negeri Surabaya. For Ms. Jauhar Wahyuni, time is yours.
Thank you very much for the host for today. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, the honorable invited speakers, guests, fellow students, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the plenary session, the first for the second International Conference of Social Science and Law, or ICSSL 2022. This is the international conference by the theme, Rethinking the Transformation of Society in Post-Pandemic, Contributions of Social Science, Education, and Law to Social Welfare. Okay, so before we start the presentation today and to avoid any disturbance during the presentation later, I would like to ask permission for all of you to let our community change your microphone to mute mode. So for the introduction, thank you for the host. My name is Jauhar Wahyuni, and I'm going to be your moderator for this session. I'm very grateful to see you here and welcome you all to this conference. So ladies and gentlemen, on this occasion, we have outstanding presentation from our prominent speakers and presenters whom I believe shall enrich our insights and knowledge regarding the theme of ICSSL 2022. Now, we have two speakers who already joined with us today. Sorry. We have first Dr. Asmil Tayyip from School of Social Science, University Science Malaysia. And the second speaker is Dr. Satra Kopang from Faculty of Law, Saxon University, Thailand. So first of all, I would like to greet Dr. Asmil Tayyip. Good morning, Dr. Asmil. Are you here with us now?
Yes, thank you, moderator. I'm here.
Thank you, Dr. Asmil. Good morning, and thank you for joining us today. And welcome to the State University of Surabaya. To make sure, is it correct to call you by your name, Dr. Asmil, or may I call you by your last name, Dr. Tayyip?
No, call me by my name, Asmil. Tayyip is my dad's name.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for the information, Dr. Asmil. So thank you for the introduction and greeting. And the next we have the second speaker. I want to greet good morning for Dr. Satra Keopang. Hello, Dr. Satra. Are you here with us? Okay.
Good morning.
Good morning, Dr.
Swadikap.
Satra. Swadikap. Thank you. Good morning. And it's really nice to see you today. So I can see you clearly now. So welcome to the State University of Surabaya, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So the same question, should I call you by your first name, Dr. Satra, or should I call you by your last name?
Maybe call me Satra. It's nice.
Okay.
That's fine.
Thank you, Dr.
Thank
Satra.
you.
Thank you. So let me give you all about information about this plenary session. The keynote speakers are going to deliver their presentation around 40 minutes each. And after both speakers, the first speakers and the second speakers have presented their topics, we will continue the discussion into Q&A, question and answer session for 20 minutes. And for your information to our honorable speakers, all the audience consists of faculties member, researcher, and the students of social science as well. So for the audience, if you have a question by the end of the session, you may ask and raise your hand, or you can type your question in the chat box. So I'm going to read them all to the question for you. So now we are ready to give the attention to our first speaker. Please welcome Dr. Asmil Tayyip. But here's some biography of him. I will read it first. So Dr. Asmil Tayyip is from School of Social Science, University Science Malaysia. Dr. Asmil Tayyip is a political scientist who has done extensive research on political Islam, social movements, and local government and politics, particularly in Indonesia and Malaysia. Previously, he was a Fulbright fellow based at a pesantren or Islamic boarding school in South Kalimantan, Indonesia, and an Erasmus Mundus Fellows based on the Humboldt University in Berlin, Germany. He was also a recipient of the University of Wisconsin Medicine Graduate Assistantship and the Australian National University's PhD Research Scholarship. He is the author of Islamic Education in Indonesia and Malaysia, Shaping Minds, Saving Souls. The book won the College Choice Award for Social Science at the 2019 International Convention of Asia Scholars in Leiden, Netherlands. He is also the editorial board member of the journal Kajian Malaysia, published by the University Science Malaysia, and Muslim Education Review, published by Universitas Islam International Indonesia. So please welcome Dr. Asmil Tayeb. Your time is about 40 minutes, and please, now the time is yours.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Moderator, and good morning, Assalamualaikum, and a very good morning to everyone, all the audience who were willing to spend your weekend here with all of us. And before I start my presentation, I'd like to thank the organizing committee, the Panitia, for this conference, especially my friend, Dr. Muzakir, who invited me to become one of the speakers for this conference. I'm truly honored to be here this morning. And also to my fellow speakers, Dr. Satra and Dr. Azhar, which I also know. So thanks, everyone. I'm glad to be here this morning. Let me just share my slides if it's okay. Yeah. I'm not able to share my slide. Would the committee share the slides for me? The one that I emailed to you. It doesn't allow me to share my slides here.
Okay, so sorry, Dr. Asmil, we're trying to help you to share your presentation. Please hold on a few minutes.
Okay. It's a very short slide. I mean, just a few slides, but I feel that maybe some graphic would be nice to accompany my talk, so you don't have to listen to me all the time. Okay, I think can you see my slides here?
Okay, the slide is appearance right now. Thank you, Dr. Asmil.
Okay.
You may continue.
Let me. Okay. So the focus of my presentation this morning is on protesting during the time of pandemic, especially last year when the pandemic was at its worst in Malaysia, and it's not just a pandemic, but everything else, the politics and the social welfare of the people. It was a really bad time in Malaysia, and then the protests happened. So the focus of this talk will be on the protests, especially the young people who mostly made up the protesters last year. Okay. So this is the protest. So not many people actually, a few hundred people, mostly young, about from 18 to 30 years old, went out to the streets in the middle of Kuala Lumpur, the capital city of Malaysia, to protest the failed government and also demanding that the Prime Minister to resign. So as most of us know, even before the pandemic, protesting in Malaysia is very difficult, yeah, and highly restrictive, because there are many laws in Malaysia that really make it really hard to protest. And so even before the pandemic, it was really hard. So when the pandemic happened, it made it even more difficult and more restrictive for people to go out to the streets, to protest, to air out their grievances, to let out their frustrations. So because of the fear that the virus can spread easily, you know, when there is a large gathering in public, right? So that was the main concern, and the authorities also use that excuse to crack down on any protests, any plans to protest during the pandemic. So not many protests happened, but quite a few did happen, right? Let's see here. So so this is not the the focus of my presentation today is the hashtag Lawan protest that took place on the 31st of July, 2021. So a little bit more than a year ago. But there are also other protests that took place during the pandemic. So so people still went out to protest, even though it's there's a high likelihood that the police would crack down on them, they would get imprisoned, they would get punished. And also there is the disapproval from the public, because everyone feared that by protesting, by having a mass gathering in public, it would help to spread the virus. But still people go out to protest. So these are the two main protests that took place during the pandemic. So first, there were protests of the hospital cleaners, actually. So the hospital cleaners that they were not paid their wages and they were treated badly, even though we know that hospital cleaners are also frontliners. The same like doctors, the same like nurses. You know, they work in the hospitals during the pandemic, highly risk environment, but they're not being treated well. They're being exploited. So some of them went to protest, yeah, and you can see they got arrested by the police, yeah, but then they were released afterwards. So, and then there's also the protest from the contract medical officers in nationwide, actually. So they walked out of the hospitals across Malaysia because they were unhappy the way that contract doctors were being treated by the government, because the government refused to give them a permanent position. Because their job, because of job insecurity, and then the risks they had to take during the pandemic, the pressure. So many of them walked out. So there are some protests that took place. And then the public opinion was pretty much divided. Yeah. I mean, I would say even more negative than positive, you know, because people think that if you're protesting during the pandemic, you're selfish, you know, you're spreading the virus and all that. So there are a lot of fear going on. Let's see. So we go back to last year, 2021. As I mentioned before, times were bleak. Yeah, it was really not a pleasant time in Malaysia, right? Because you can see all these different factors that led to the protests and ultimately to the Prime Minister stepping down. So first, there is the political instability that we are still experiencing in Malaysia now. Yeah. So, but the political instability started just at the same time when the pandemic started. So in March, late February and 2020. So when the government changed, right? So because of defections, so the government that was the ruling coalition that was part of the government then broke up, yeah, and then there was a new government in place. But the new government that was in place since March 2020 does not still cannot prove its majority in the parliament. So as we know, in a democracy, you need to prove that you have a majority in the parliament to form a government, right? The same like Indonesia, the same like any other democracies around the world. So the government that Malaysia has since March 2020 has not been able to prove its majority, that it has a majority support in the parliament. So that in turn led to political instability, because there are a lot of challenges from different parties, different personalities, so contending to claiming that they also have the majority. So that it became very unstable, very contentious, very fragmented. Yeah? So that has been the defining characteristic of the politics in during the pandemic and even until now. Yeah? And then second factor is the suspension of democracy, right? So what happened here is that the government, the one that I mentioned that that cannot show its majority support in the parliament, simply and then call for a state of emergency in Malaysia, darurat. Yeah? So we know that the state of emergency typically happen when, let's say, when there is a coup d'état, or when when something extraordinary happen in the country, yeah, maybe a natural disaster. So the government that's fast losing support, that fast been seen by the public as ineffective, and then trying to avoid a vote of no confidence in the parliament. So in a vote of no confidence, if the majority of the parliament voted that they no longer have confidence of the government, of the prime minister, and then the government has to be dissolved, right? And then a new election will be called. So what the Malaysian government did was, the prime minister did was to call for a state of emergency, right? Darurat. So as a way, and then using the pandemic as a reason, as a pretext. So what the state of emergency did was to suspend the parliament. So imagine that you're in the country and then the MPs, the members of the parliament, were not allowed to go and to do their job in the parliament, right? So the parliament was not functioning at this time. It was closed, basically, right? Closed shop. And also to make it worse, I guess some people think that there's maybe it's the government purposely let the increase in the number of COVID-19 cases to justify the state of emergency, but the country did see a sharp spike in the number of COVID cases, and so we let me find it. So the number actually from January 2021, it was about 1,000 plus cases per day, right? And by the time the #Lawan protest took place, the number was more than 16,000 cases per day. So in a span of just 6 to 7 months, so the number rose, multiple times, right? Order of magnitude. So including death, right? So people were feeling very pessimistic, very despondent, right? During this time, right? So with the political instability, and then also the COVID cases are getting worse, yeah. And then to make it even worse is that the socioeconomic from the fallout, right? The effect from the pandemic, right? So as we know, not just in Malaysia, but in other countries, including Indonesia, many people suffered from the pandemic, right? So people lost their jobs, right? People, suffered economically, right? so lost their jobs, or businesses had to close down, and things like that. Right? So there are people who have not enough to eat, or barely make ends meet. So there is a widespread suffering, right? Across Malaysia. And then so much so that it created this movement called the Black Flag Movement, Bendera Hitam. Yeah. So I will go a bit more into this later on. So and then this Black Flag Movement, basically what it means is that, you know, if you're suffering, if you, let's say, don't have enough to eat, or you don't have money to pay for your children's, for your baby's diapers, for example, or your baby's milk, and you can put a black flag or black shirt on your front gate, on your front, you know, on your door, on your window, and someone will come by and maybe ask you, you know, like, what do you need, right? So that's basically what Black Flag Movement was, right? So in the end, in sum, this all four factors show that there is a loss of trust in government during this time, right? So people don't see government as being effective. They see that the government cannot really help people. They only care about power. They only care about like who gets to be the prime minister, who gets, you know, so they don't care about the people, the regular people who are suffering. And also there are many cases where politicians and rich people, they broke the pandemic law, they broke the quarantine, or they can, it seems like there are double standards. There were double standards, right? So one law applies to one standard applies to the powerful and the rich, and then another standard applies to the regular people. So there is this perception, right? So the government has failed. And then so at this time, so there were movement, or I guess, you know, in Twitter mainly. So there is this a trending for hashtag kerajaan gagal. So kerajaan is what we call pemerintah, right? Is what pemerintah is in Indonesia. So kerajaan gagal, right? So like pemerintah gagal. So it became a very popular hashtag. It's trending widely on Twitter, right? So, and then that in turn, I guess, changed the nature of social welfare in Malaysia, right? Because people no longer saw the government as being the provider, as a place, as someone they can go to when they need something, when they're in need, I guess, you know. So there's a feeling of hopelessness when it comes to the government, right? So now the help, public assistance comes from the bottom, from the community itself. It's grassroots driven. For example, the Black Flag Movement, right? So people take it to themselves to help each other because they don't see the government as being helpful. They don't want to be dependent on the government anymore because it's not doing anything for the people. So this is the context, this is the background that ultimately led to the hashtag Lawan protests on the 31st of July, 2021. And then a day after the hashtag Lawan protest, the Prime Minister then, Muhyiddin Yassin, stepped down as a Prime Minister, and then replaced by the current minister right now, Ismail Sabri. So here you can see Malaysia was declared a state of emergency because of COVID, suspends the parliament during this time. So democracy wasn't working in Malaysia, right? So people who have something to say, who have issues and grievances, there is no outlet. They cannot go to their representative, to their wakil rakyat, and say that, we are unhappy about this and this and this, can you take it to the parliament and represent our voice? So that was not possible during the state of emergency because the parliament was closed, right? So the only way that people can show their frustration and show their anger was to take it to the streets. So they go out and protest, right? Because all the other channels were close to them. So you can see here, also there is an exponential rise in COVID-19 cases, as I mentioned earlier. So on 12th January, when the government called for the state of emergency, so the cases were, there were 2,232 cases, right? So, and then this number has already been, was already on the rise because in 2020, the number was very low, right, in Malaysia. So when it got to 2,000 plus cases, the government called for the state of emergency, and then it was approved by the king, right, Yang di-Pertuan Agong in Malaysia. So the first attempt, the government did try actually to call for state of emergency in 2020, but it was denied by the Agong, the king. And then the government tried again after the cases went up to 2,000 plus, from maybe 100, 200 cases per day. So, and then this time the king approved the government's request to call for the state of emergency. So by the 31st of July 2021, you can see the cases went up to almost 17,000, right? So this is you can see the pandemic, the situation of the pandemic became worse. And as I mentioned before as well, the fourth factor is the widespread suffering of the rakyat, of the people, right? So this is, so people were angry at the government for not doing anything, right? So for not helping the people. People say, okay, like you put up a black flag or black shirt in front of your house on the gates, and then someone will come and help you. And then there were also some people, enterprising people, who created apps, right, for the Black Flag movement. So you can download an app, and then in the app there is a map of your local neighborhood, right? And then you can see for those who are willing to give and those willing to donate, I guess, and those who are in need. So you can match the two. So you can see the ones in your local neighborhood who are suffering, who are in need, and then you can immediately contact that person, right? Or you can maybe go even visit that person in that person's house and say like, oh, what do you need? Is there anything I can help you with? So these are all community grassroots driven initiative. There's no help from the government at all, because there's almost nothing coming from above, right? Because the perception is that the government has failed, right? Kerajaan gagal. So you can see here the Prime Minister and the government felt the pressure, right? So to the point of telling the people to be patient, don't buy into #Kerajaan Gagal campaign. Right, so the government is on the defensive, is on the denial that is actually not doing much for the people. Okay, so now we get to the protest, right? So the protest took place on 31st July 2021, but of course there were a lot of organizing that goes into it, that went into it before before the protests, right? So this paper I'm co-authoring with my friend who was part of the protests, right? And he did join the organizing committee for a while, but he participated in the process in the protests, and and it was his idea to write a paper about this. So the organizing committee for this protest is it's called the Secretariat Solidarity Rakyat, SSR. So it's a committee that consists of mainly young activists. As I've said, the protest is mostly young people from 18 to 30 years old. They're from the Undi 18 campaign, which is a group of activists who campaign to lower the voting age from 21 years old to 18 years old. And then Suaram, which is a human rights organization. Pemuda PSM. PSM is Parti Socialist Malaysia, Malaysian Socialist Party. Bersih 2.0 is a coalition of organizations that advocate for electoral reforms in Malaysia and other non-affiliated individuals, right? So they got together and then they organized, for this protest, mainly for the logistics, which route to take, and how maybe to maintain social distancing and not give reasons for the authority to crack down on them. And you will see during the protest, they do maintain social distancing between them. And then, of course, publicity. You need publicity to get people to come to the protest, and also legal assistance, right? So there will be lawyers at the protest that help protesters who were arrested by the police or even harassed by the authorities. So there were lawyers there providing pro bono or free service, right? And then do the planning and outreach via Twitter, Facebook, WhatsApp, and Telegram, and to reach out for most of the young people who use these social media apps. So I guess the focus of this paper is to look at the motivation and the reasons, right, why the youth protested during the pandemic, why most of them went out to protest. So my co-author and I, we talked to 10 of them actually that we chose, that we select, right, from, and they're all 18 to 30 years old. Some of them were first-time protesters, and some of them had a few protests under their belts. So we have a good mix, excuse me, and also both men and women, right? So just from the interviews, we've extrapolated 4 reasons, why did the youth protest during the pandemic, right? First, as I mentioned, politically in Malaysia at the time, it was there's just no outlet for them, right, to vent out their frustrations, air out their grievances. So it's so they need to take out to the streets, right? So they feel that it is their social responsibility to protest. Right? So because of the government dysfunction, increase in the number of COVID-19 cases and deaths, and also the closing of the parliament. So they feel like they need to do something. They cannot just sit at home and just watch the country going to destroying itself, right? So they feel that there's a social responsibility to protest. And the second reason is there is safety in groups, right? So for us, I guess for who have been part of protests before, we know that we feel much better if we are in a group compared to just if we're alone as an individual, right? So there's safety in groups through social media organizing and information sharing, and along with the legal assistance provided by the organizer, as I mentioned earlier. So these lawyers providing pro bono services who are there on the streets, with the protesters and observing to see if there are any human rights violation. So all of this lessens the risks and the cost of participation for the protesters. So they feel more emboldened, they feel more courageous to participate in this protest, even for the first-time protesters, right? So this is help them, right, with their self-confidence. And then the third reason, they're young, right? As I mentioned, young people, 18 to 30. Many of them are students or NGO workers or even unemployed, that allow them the latitude, right? the freedom, I guess, to participate without any repercussions from their employers, compared to those who work for the government or maybe who work for the private sector. If their employees find out, there's a chance that they will be punished or even lose their job. So that's the risk that usually people have to take when they're protesting in Malaysia, right? And then the final factor, which I find quite sweet, is that so they get support and blessing from their family to participate in the protests, right? Because they're young, and almost all of them are still living with their parents, right? So of course, when they go out to protest, they have to tell their parents, right? So that their parents don't get worried, and then it's to them, when they receive support and blessing from the family, they feel more courageous. They feel it boosts their self-confidence to go. Because they know that there's backing. If something happens, they know, and then their family knows, and then their family know where to find them. They know they do have help. So it lessens the risks and the cost of participation, and it makes them more braver to join the protests, right? So these are the four factors, that we get from our interviews with the protesters for in this #Lawan Protest. So we're actually at the end of the presentation. I'm just showing you some of the pictures of the protest. You can see, how they maintain social distancing here. So there's space between, so they're not that close with each other. So you try to maintain about 1.5 or 2 meter distance between the next person. So you don't like I've mentioned, they don't want to give the police any reason to arrest them, right, for breaking the pandemic regulations. So these are some of the protests here. So yeah, so that's my presentation for today. Thank you very much, everyone, for listening, and I look forward to the Q&A session after this. So matur nuwun, yeah.
Sami.
I get to practice my very limited Javanese. So thank you again for inviting me. I'm honored to be here, and back to the moderator.
Thank you, Dr. Asmil Tayeb. Once again, thank you very much for your presentation. It's precisely 40 minutes to you present just 40 minutes ago. So we just have so many insights from your presentation. It's about political science and political situation in Malaysia, especially when the pandemic is appeared and the emergency situation is coming, and it's affect the national security from the government. Also, especially you said the example like the campaign of Bendera Hitam, and then also the #Kerajaan Gagal that affect the government during the pandemic. Is it right? And then, so thank you again for your presentation, Dr. Asmil. And now we are going to move to the second speaker on the session. I would like to invite Dr. Satra Kyopang from Thailand. Thank you again for your time and your kindness for waiting for the session. And before we start hearing the presentation, let me introduce yourself by sharing your brief biography. Dr. Satra Keupang from Faculty of Law, Taksin University, Thailand. He is a senior lecturer at the Faculty of Law, Taksin University, Thailand, and he focused on administrative law, business law, natural resources, and environmental law, industrial law, and intellectual property law. So, Dr. Satra, how are you today? Are you great?
I'm doing very well.
Okay.
Thank you very much, moderator.
Thank you. The presentation is, you can go on for your presentation right now. It's around 40 minutes and the time is yours.
Yep. Okay. Your honor committees, ladies and gentlemen, and it's my warm greeting from Thailand. Sawadee krap. Okay. And okay, before I start, let me tell you a bit about my background. I graduated from the Prince of Songkhla University, also Chulalongkorn University, and in partnership with the Kyushu University in Japan, Washington University in USA, and also the University of Victoria and British Columbia in Canada as the master degree in law. Okay, and at the doctoral degree, I graduated from the International Institute. Okay, and also I just finished my higher education program and working as the visiting scholar from the Illinois State University in USA about 2 to 3 months ago. I just been there. Okay, just have a very big fun. You travel to USA after we at the stage of the, I'm not sure to say post or in the state of pandemic. Okay, that's in brief. Okay, and also I got a seminar in the National Defense of Thailand. Okay, and from the administrative court. Okay, for example, that not go too far. Just try to fill in some of the moderator needs. Okay, and so I'm Dr. Satra Keupang, former Associate Dean and Director of Legal Affairs and Senior Lecturer from Faculty of Law, Taksin University, Thailand. Today, it's my honor to talk as the keynote address to all guests gathering, and I'm really delighted that the theme has been chosen that relevant to the current time. Thank you again for inviting me to be part of this conference and to share my thought on challenges of society in post-pandemic. Challenges of society in post-pandemic. And actually exchange and learn about social science, education, and law to social welfare in post-pandemic from this conference. Next normal. Okay. Next normal. Yes, we have, of course, geared the expect to the next normal. The last couple of years, I can say that it has been different the year in the past. In fact, 5 to 10 years ago, no one would expect this situation like this. A lot of things have happened. And a major event, of course, the restriction that the world has experienced because of the COVID-19 pandemic. It will be a memorable time for many of us who live to this time. Therefore, of course, it's a great time to think about what is going to be in the next normal. Next normal, yes, is difficult to predict considering the answer. First of all, of course, the pandemic has reduced the world GDP of most countries significantly. Typically affect economic growth for a few years or more. Most of the economy in the regions has been impacted. Some of regions has been impacted more severely compared to others. It is undeniable that the economic fallout of the pandemic as expected that the people thought once the pandemic initially settled. Another concern, well, many believe that education is a public benefit and fundamental right of the citizens. Okay? Many believe that education is a public benefit and fundamental right of citizens. Previously, we are not familiar with learn management, which are an online platform, Google Classroom, Zoom, Microsoft Teams. Among one of the changes development, definitely since the hybrid learning face-to-face classroom instruction and online expertise. And maybe educator adopted to be connect to their student, present materials and provide support. We need to put into place the learning system that are profoundly personalized, collaborative student center, and interestingly motivate student. This experience needs to produce learning stick for life, not just until one academic term or until the program is over. This experience need to be repeated. It's learning that sticks for lifelong learning. As the global pandemic impact every aspect of society in daily life, though there are still uncertainty. But one thing that is certainty is we need to move forward. Okay, we need to move forward. So some basic truth about education remain unchanged. Is that all of the students at whatever level have the potential to learn. At the core of education, it is about how educators personalize the learning experience to meet the needs of learner. How we notice and provide support to learner. And then it comes up with the question that what we should define or redefine, that is not forget what is mean to be human, what is mean to be real. Okay, and another concern that is COVID-19 crisis leaves people jobless. Okay, pandemic leads to huge reductions in working hours due to, for example, lockdown and travel restrictions in place. Demand has slumped, and many businesses have been forced to close or cut back on operation, having a serious impact on workers, particularly new graduates who hold bachelor degree are likely to remain unemployed for prolonged due to limited economic expansion, which has forced business to lay off workers. As many businesses are monitoring the situation before they start recruiting again. So, any support measure should be introduced. For example, expanding job information and employment services targeted to young job seekers, increasing funds for upskill and reskill, especially in growth sectors, or supporting young entrepreneurs through access to capital combined with non-financial services. And the next concern, what I'm thinking about is advance in technology development. Another concern, that is advance in technology development. The advance in technology development, social media sites help to connect to people worldwide. Internet is an incredible tool sustaining new trends and technological advancements, which is passing day. The connections can help one with a variety of things, like seeking a new job, locating assistance, making or receiving advice. However, there are some problems. For example, cyberbullying, use of social network can expose individuals to harassment or inappropriate contract from others, risks of fraud or identity theft, especially on the social network platform, has causes the obstacles. Another thing you should bear in mind, information technologies are rapidly penetrating in the human life, which have also triggers the need to change the pattern of services are being offered. For example, e-government services management are becoming a norm in developed countries. Citizens are now encouraged to communicate and affect their transactions with government organizations using e-government service platform. Though continuous assurance is given for the protection of end-user information and privacy on this platform, there have been many cases of the data breach in recent years. So another concern that real is inequality. Another concern is inequality. Inequality is more than money matters. Inequality is more than money matters. Inequality is unethical. It crushes the basic principle that every person should have equal opportunities. It also the root cause of many structural problems in the whole world society. If we want to make our society fair, equal, democratic, innovative, and safe, we need to tackle inequality by making sure that every person, regardless of gender, race, or belief, has equal access to life opportunity and justice. Why the gaps between people in the whole world society in accessing basic social services such as education narrow? The gaps in accessing high quality services are widening. For example, children from wealthy families have more opportunities to enter prestige university and gain higher knowledge and skills. And another one would be the quality of internet access. In the rural areas has consistently been considered second class compared with those in the capital and major cities. In low inequality countries, every child had the same access to free quality education to high school level at a minimum. Repeat it again, at a minimum, with the aim of helping everyone to realize their full potential. The universal welfare benefits cover sickness, unemployment, and disabilities. Such true benefits provide equal opportunity and strong social safety nets for all. So people do not have to fear the uncertainty that life may bring. Such life security is good for business too. Entrepreneurs can focus solely on managing business risks as their life are already protected by the comprehensive social welfare system that can bring more investment, including high quality and small and medium size enterprises, or we so-called SMEs, which in turn can help make universal welfare affordable. For example, in Thailand, old age pension is provided at less than $300 a month for insured person after they retire or get the age of 55. Think about that. Therefore, Thailand's social security scheme require reform if it is to meet the needs of an aging population in years to come. And due to the state of present society, the cost of living is relatively high in comparison to the past. The benefits received from Social Security is inadequate in terms of survival for senior insurers. Something comes up to my mind once we talk about inequality. Higher tax on social media influencer shall apply. Social media influencer for higher tax shall apply. Social media has become more important and essential to us. From communication to entertainment to shopping, it is the one-stop solution for our various needs. The number of people using social media has grown at an exponential rate over the last decade. Hence, influencer marketing has become an important aspect of a brand overall marketing strategy and is seen as an efficient way to reach out to a target audience and raise awareness, sponsorship, and add money, among other things, can be located for social media influencer. And well, there is a new private airline that's open just for influencer or celebrities. So, should celebrities or influencer liable to pay higher income tax? I just raised the idea or the questions, okay? Okay, and another concern is regulatory guillotine. Okay, another concern is regulatory guillotine. Law is an essential tool in public administration. However, having many laws or laws that create an unreasonable burden of compliance is a problem, becoming an obstacle to the country growth. And we need regulatory impact assessment. Okay? In Thailand, for some time, we have the rule say that face masks are required in vehicle with 2 or more people traveling on roads in Bangkok, the capital city. Face masks are required in vehicles with 2 or more people traveling on roads in Bangkok, which is the capital city of Thailand. People who fail to wear a mask when away from their home face a fine of up to more than $600. If there's more than one person in the vehicle, the driver and passengers must wear masks. And this applies even if they are of the same family. However, family live in the same house. Wearing masks is not mandatory. So what do you reckon? Right? Okay. And okay. Looking back, ladies and gentlemen, it may seem it happened so quickly from the time of COVID-19 pandemic first descent upon the world. Though we may not quite accustomed to the thing now, the new normal and beyond the next normal. Ladies and gentlemen, after about 2 years, we declare ourselves in post-pandemic stage. Everything itself is now beyond the next normal. We are about to somewhere here. Our own unique setting, our own expectations, our own experiences, sometimes using whatever works best. There is a lot of analysis we are heard too, and what will be the next normal, and how what is look like. So the sensational congratulate to the organizer of this conference to have chosen the very relevant theme, and I am sure all the participants and all the authors who are contributing to the publication of proceeding presentation as part of this conference will get a lot of insight even as the world is facing a lot of challenge. What this means for the people coming, they have prepared themselves much better for the next normal. I'm sure all of you, lots of you heard report talking about certain discipline, certain job becoming relevant. Turn my keynote speaker at this, I would say that is obviously hope. And we know mankind and the world has faced many challenges before. And the world always overcome them. And every time these challenges has been overcome, there has a lot of development and a lot of advances. And I'm sure that this time as well, the next normal might just transform us in the way we never thought. I wish this conference all the best. I look forward to the learning from this conference. Thank you. ขอบคุณครับ
Thank you very much, Dr. Satra Kaupang, for your presentation. It is really interesting presentation for today. I can see that you explain about the uncertainty about the pandemic itself and the gap between the education, societal level, and also the global structural gap, also the jobless and unemployment, also the pandemic itself, and after that, what what are we going to do? Like the importance of using social media is now more important than real life. Like in business, influencer is more important and also have the more selling aspects to reach the target audience, right? Okay, so now we got new insights from your presentation, and the presentation is really interesting. So we are going to move now for the Q&A session or question and answer for the both speakers, especially Dr. Asmil Tayeb and also Dr. Satra Keupang. All right then. So we're now continuing our session. And actually we have so many questions for both speakers, and it comes from the chat box also that committee has completed. But because we have limited time, it's about 25 minutes. So we are only give 3 questions for this session. And 2 questions is actually for Dr. Asmil Tayeb. May I read it first? So the first one is about the perspective of youth movement, Dr. Asmil. So how do you think that the youth movement sees global socio-political changes after the Russian invasion in Ukraine, and also after the current situation that just appeared yesterday? That's the death of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth. So what do you think about the changing of the youth movement that is affected by the 2 situations that I've mentioned before? You may
Okay.
answer it, okay, directly.
Can I answer now or okay? All right. Thank you for the question. Okay, first of all, I think these 2 events don't really have much effect on Malaysia, especially Malaysian youth. Maybe the Queen's death has a bit more effect just simply because Malaysia used to be a British colony, and then maybe there's some kind of I guess emotional attachments, a bit of sentiment to that. But I think most people don't feel anything. I think the war in Ukraine really don't affect much. I know it affects the global food supply and all those things, but I think people in Malaysia, not just young people, but in general, they don't see that connection. They don't see the disruption in the global food supply, for example. So it barely has any traction in the news here. But I would say that, speaking of the youth and politics in general in Malaysia, there is a trend that, because if you remember from my presentation, that the politics in Malaysia for the past, at least past 3 years, has been defined as unstable, fragmented, right? Highly contentious. So it actually turns away a lot of youth from politics, actually from formal politics. So there are surveys done, and also from me in my capacity as a teacher at a university, and then when I talk to my students, they always feel they feel like, what's the point? Let's say to go to vote, for example. Like, they're all the same, regardless. You're the opposition, you're the government, all they care about is power, right? So there's this kind of sentiment that, even though the youth in Malaysia now, the 18-year-old can vote, 18 to 20 years old can vote. I know Malaysia has been lagging behind most of the countries in the world. Indonesia can, what's the minimum age to vote in Indonesia? 16 or 17, right? 16. Right? Malaysia used to be 21 years old. Even China, like people get 18 years old can vote there. So just recently, the government lowered the voting age to 18 in hoping that more young people would vote in the election. But then most young people don't care much about the election. It's like, what's the point? We vote, and then these people they care about is power. They don't care about us. So, but at the same time, these young people has a very high rate of volunteerism. So they see that, okay, they might not be interested in formal politics, but they're interested in what's going on in society. So you see a lot of young people volunteering, like say tutoring poor kids or refugee kids in the community, or feeding the homeless people, or doing various community work, because they see that, so it's not like they're apathetic. They do care about the society, but they do it in a way that they feel they are more productive and they can contribute. They can feel that their contribution are being appreciated by they can see the change, in the work that they do, so they don't see voting as any meaning. So in comparison to volunteer work. So that's the kind of trend that we see in Malaysia now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the answer, Dr. Asmil Tayyip. So it's about the power of the youth, especially when they see some current situation, they still also have their power to change the situation, of course. And then the next question, I see that someone is raising his hand, is Mr. Agus Mahfud Fauzi. So please, you may ask your question, which speakers you want to ask. You may mention the name. Please, the time is yours.
Thank you, Ms. Moderator. On this opportunity, I ask to the first Mr. Asmil Tayyip, like you presentation just now. Black movement in Malaysia. It is serious in Malaysia. Is it the problem of healthy or the problem or politics? I mean that it's different between in Indonesia. Indonesia, the reality of healthy on beginning of COVID, it's dilemma because there are different between minister and president. Mr. Turiawan as minister aim to defend with traditional herbs like empon-empon, jamu-jamu, but Mr. President follow the whole Western health medicine. And the politics, namely pilkada, like local election, it's running well in 2020. So, but my ask, how on Malaysia, it's the phenomena reality of healthy or the politics. Usually, what the black flag movement is. Thank you. Okay. And second, I asked to Mr. Satra, influencer more important in Thailand. In Indonesia, influencer defend the regime to the point of ignoring the content. So the regime is always right and must be defended. Is it like that in Thailand too? Although, according to me, that it's not education. Thank you, Ms. Moderator.
Thank you for Mr. Agus Mahfud Fauzi, and the question is for Mr. Dr. Asmil Tayyip. I'm so sorry, Dr. Asmil Tayyip, right? Okay. For the question, you may answer it. Time is yours.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Pak Agus, for the question. It's interesting when you bring up the comparison with Indonesia. As the moderator introduced me before my presentation, I also do a lot of research in Indonesia. I'm quite familiar with what's going on in Indonesia, and there are big differences, between the two countries, because Indonesia, as we know, is highly decentralized, right? So you have the central government, and also you have the regional governments, and then they can be at odds with each other, as we can see during the pandemic. right? Because you have the some regulations imposed by central government, but not followed by the provincial government, and things like that. So, but in Malaysia, it's different because it's highly centralized, especially when it comes to the pandemic response. So even though Malaysia is legally is a federal country, practices a federal system where the states in Malaysia or negara bahagian in Malaysia have their own jurisdiction, they have their own power, but in reality, in practice, is fully dominated by the central government in Putrajaya. So there's no difference when it comes to the pandemic. So basically, the provincial government simply follow the directives from the central government. And then of course we do have characters like Minister Terawan as well in Malaysia. So our former health minister at the beginning of the pandemic also say that you can drink warm water and then it will help to kill the COVID-19 virus, and giving advice like that, you know, and this is coming from the health minister. Which is and then the health minister who was actually a doctor, you know, and then giving advice, and very unscientific advice, misleading advice to people. So we do have this, but thankfully he was replaced, the same like Terawan as well, who was then later replaced, by more competent minister. So yes, so there are, but in Malaysia, when it comes to the implementation of the pandemic policies, it's very uniform compared to Indonesia, simply because the central government is so dominant. And during the pandemic, it almost feels like we're at a war in Malaysia. I mean, literally at a war, because you see soldiers and you see police officers on the streets. You see blockades, in Malaysia, we cannot travel outside beyond our state line, for example. So we have to stay within our own states. Like for me, for example, because I live in Penang on the island, so I'm pretty much trapped on the island for most of the pandemic. So there are police or even military blockade, police blockade on the bridge, connecting to the mainland. So so I'm trapped on the island. I guess it could be worse. I could be trapped in the middle of a desert, for example. But at least it's an island, so it's nice. But still, so there's restrictions and things like that. So which is interesting if you compare to Indonesia, because you have the central and then you have the provincial, and they can be both have different policies because of the autonomy and then also the decentralization practice in Indonesia. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Asmil Taib, for answering the question. And now we're going to the third question, or the last question. It's come from chat box, and I think it is for Dr. Satra Kaupang from Thailand. So her name is Melda, and she wants to ask for Mr. Satra or Dr. Satra. Thank you so much for the presentation, Dr. Satra, and she is interested for what you call in social structure in relating inequality education, and you describe it before that in Thailand, and why it is so important. So in Indonesia, that has been research that model in every family also impact inequality in education as well. And now we call it as Merdeka Belajar in Indonesia. And in Thailand, can you share the strategy that government should do that the inequality education has to be solved in the social structure? Thank you. You may answer the question.
First of all, thank you very much for the questions. And please, I let you know that what I'm talking roughly this about education in the world, not particularly in Thailand. I believe that all of the nations in the world try their best to support and promote and also try to make the best strategy for their citizenship. That's what I could believe. However, related to your question, in Thailand, the education is go very well. But we have some worrisome or concerning in some area. In major city or capital city, that wouldn't be the problem. Let me give you an example, like in the remote area. In some places, one teacher have to respond all of the subject from the kindergarten and more. You know what I mean? Like in remote area, I think it's similar to the other country too. Nobody want to go, nobody want to work there, right? So they will have less personnel, and also they may have something like a quality of internet problem, right? We try to reach everything in town. We try to use anything as online, but not covering all. And I believe, again, all our country try their best, okay, to take care of their citizenship.
Okay, thank you for Dr. Satra Kaupang. And there's still another question for you, Dr. Satra. So it's also from the chat box, and I will read it. It's come from the first question from the Dr. Asmil type also, the same person. It's from Mr. Agus Mahfud Fauzi. So the question is, it's about the influencer that you've mentioned before, and you explained the importance of the influencer in Thailand. So in Indonesia, the influencer defend the regime to the point of ignoring the content. So the regime is always right and must be defended. Is it like that in Thailand too? Is it the same? Or although Mr. Agus Fauzi don't think that it's not, it's educational. So you may answer the question, Dr. Satra, please.
Okay, and related to the influencer, you know, I could not say what we have 100% sure for the question, was it right or wrong, without the detail. What I try to say to you, because, okay, you know my background is law. So before we answer yes or no questions, we need to know more about detail, evidence, and anything related. But okay, we are in short. So actually, I think in brief, we cannot neglect any related to the influencer, whatever it the person itself or the content or anything. And why I raise the issue like this? Because, you know, I'm care about the student. I'm really not sure, to be honest, what happened in Malaysia, what happened in Indonesia. But in Thailand today, students love to be follower. You know, So anything influencer did is had an impact. It's had an impact a lot to the student. That's why I pay much more concerning to this.
Okay, so is it that enough for the answer, Dr. Satra, or you may edit some answer?
No, I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm fine. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Satra.
Miss Moderator, mute.
So sorry, thank you. So sorry, thank you. Thank you before. So Dr. Satra Keupang and Dr. Asmil Tayeb, thank you very much for answering the question. And now, ladies and gentlemen, so we have finally come to the end of the session of the plenary session part 1. So let's give a big round of applause for our speaker, Dr. Asmil Tayeb and Dr. Satra Keupang from School of Social Science, University Science Malaysia, and also from the Faculty of Law, Taksin University of Thailand. Give applause for a moment. And now, finally, I would like to thank the speakers, for both speakers for the informative and interesting presentation, and all the participants for being a wonderful participation during the session. And also, I would like to remind you that please do not forget to fill the present form that appear in your chat box, and the link is available also in the chat box. So hopefully we have another chance to see each other again, especially for our beloved speaker, for Dr. Asmil Tayeb and Dr. Satra Keupang. Hopefully we meet again in the future, and also the audience. And thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The world is different after pandemic of COVID-19. Everything has been impacted. There is new norm and practical in social, politic, law, and the other aspect of life. The transformation is challenging and also a can for academic to give new insight. We are from Faculty Social Science and Law, Universitas Negeri Surabaya, has commitment to not just snapshot the changes, but we are doing research, has discussion to get some ideas, solution to respond to the phenomenon.
The effect after pandemic become new scientific laboratorium for academic. New interaction and movement in society become new study material. So that we are trying increase academic culture through discussion and research that bring us to the international conference, called Second International Conference of Social Science and Law.
The theme of the conference is rethinking the transformation of society in pandemic era, contribution of social science, education, and law. We choose the theme because we have seen that our society, not only in Indonesia, but around the world, we face the problem, namely the post-pandemic. How the society has changed after this pandemic situation. We expect that the conference give the insight to the academic world that by knowledge, by present the research, they can update the information, especially in academic society.
We are welcoming you all and greet all of the academic, researcher, and also the college student who want to join us in ICSSR 2022. Let's sharing knowledge, has discussion together, also found new ideas that has impact to the life.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the plenary session of the Second International Conference on Social Science and Law, or ICSSL 2022. This is the international conference by the same time, rethinking the transformation of society post-pandemic, contribution of social science, education, and law to social welfare. Before we start the presentation, to avoid any disturbances during the presentation later, I would like to ask your permission to let our commit change your microphone to mute mode. The honorable invited speakers, guests, fellow students, ladies and gentlemen of ICSSL 2022, my name is Revinda Anita and I'm going to be your moderator for this session. I'm very grateful to see you here and welcome you all to this conference. Ladies and gentlemen, on this occasion, we have outstanding presentation from our prominent presenters, whom I believe shall enrich our insight and knowledge regarding the theme of ICSSL 2022. We have two speakers who already joined with us today. We have Dr. Azhar Ibrahim and Professor Aisyah Endah Palupi. First of all, I would like to greet Dr. Ibrahim. Good morning, Dr. Ibrahim. Hello, are you with us?
Yes, yeah, good morning, everyone. Good morning, Ms. Moderator.
All right, thank you so much. To make sure, is it correct to call you by your name, Dr. Azhar, or may I call your last name?
Azhar call me. Yeah.
Dr. Azhar. Okay, yeah. All right, thank you. Welcome to State University of Surabaya, Doctor.
Yeah, sama-sama.
Okay. The next is Professor Aisyah Endah Palupi. Good morning, Professor Aisyah.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Mrs. Moderator. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
You're welcome. It is an honor to that you can join with us today, Professor. So let me give you a brief information about this plenary session. The keynote speakers are going to deliver their presentations around 40 minutes each. And after both speakers have presented their topics, we will continue the discussion into question and answer session for about 25 minutes. And for your information, all the audience consists of faculty member, and then researchers and the students as well. Okay, all right. For the audience, you may have a question by the end of the session. If you have a question, you may raise your hand, or you can type your question in the chat box, and I'm going to read the question for you. So now we are ready to give the attention to our first speaker. Please welcome Dr. Azhar and hear some biography of him. I will read it. Dr. Azhar Ibrahim graduated with a Doctor of Philosophy and Master's degree from the same university, specializing in Malay studies, especially in the field of classical and modern Malay literature. His focus is on the sociology of literature, social theology, cultural discourse, civilization, and Islamic thought, as well as his interest in critical literary discourse and Malay Indonesian intellectual development. He has also published Syair Kesaksian entitled The Theme of Social Criticism. Among his published books are Historical Imagination and Cultural Response to Colonialism and Nationalism. A Critical Malaysian Perspective menyanggah belenggu kerancuan pikiran masa kini, utopia masyarakat lamba, cendekiawan Melayu penyuluh emansipasi, and then bahasa dan tantangan intellectualism, contemporary Islamic discourse in the Malay Indonesia world, and narrating presence, awakening from cultural amnesia. Okay, Dr. Ibrahim, the title of his presentation is The Challenge of Post-Pandemic, Addressing Human Suffering and Ethical Vision in Knowledge Production, right?
Yes.
Okay, you have 40 minutes to present your work, so please, the time is yours.
All right, thank you, Miss Moderator. Very good morning, everyone. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera, and it's my pleasure to be with friends from Universitas Negeri Surabaya. I've been to Surabaya for a number of times, and I know thanks to Dr. Muzakir, who invited me into this forum. Allow me to share my screen so that the discussion will take place properly. Yeah. All right. Can you see my slides?
Yeah, I can see clearly.
Oh, all right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. So, thank you for our two earlier speakers who have laid out a good foundation for us to make sense of what the challenges of pandemic. Yeah, but my focus is basically on how the world of academia itself, right, prepared for these challenges. Yeah, I want to focus on the post-pandemic. Yeah? Foremost, I think we must reject our resigned acceptance. Yeah, that the so-called new normal, which can be, of course, extremely dehumanized to everyone. Yeah. And that we in the academia who are in the business of teaching and learning must take a very firm, critical stance, yeah, which is part of our ethical duty to fight for the life of those who have been the victims, yeah, of this savageness of pandemic, right, in the context of neoliberal economy. I think that's essentially my focus. All right, since I think I want to frame my discussion on the ilmu sosial dan hukum, yeah, what you call it, social science and law, I would like to focus on what I call it, what has been should be the trust yang menyenangkan. Kita tahu kalau kita meninggal itu kemana kita pulang. Sorry, I think there's some voice there.
Yeah, sorry, Dr. Azhar.
Can we get to off? Otherwise, I won't be able to continue. Is it okay? Yeah. All right. So I want to quote this Brazilian sociologist who I think give us some insights into what basically our job is. Yeah, naked. The essence of an all-authentic sociology, or we can say it's social science or law for that matter, directly or indirectly, a purpose of salvation and social reconstruction. For this reason, inspiration is taken from communitarian experience lived by the sociologists, in a function of which meaning is acquired. Disconnected from effective human reality, sociology or social sciences is a ludic activity with the same facile nature. However, talks about life, talks about problems, the essence of life in its incessant problematics. Thus, the extent that sociology vitally exercises his mind, his thought with his own national or regional circumstances. I think this is where Alberto Guerrero Ramos, I think, tell us, give us insights into actually what's the purpose for us in academia, the task of building knowledge and how do we address human problems and issues. So speaking about that, I think I'm focusing on the contribution of knowledge production to social welfare, which is actually one of the themes, right, for this conference. And for such, I think we need to address that the crisis and predicament of our time must be the concerns of knowledge production. Knowledge production is not simply for some trivial or narcissistic theory creation, right? It must address first human needs and challenges. And of course, with that, there must be a consciousness to mitigate human suffering. This is what knowledge is for, right? Knowledge for what? Yeah. And 3, expanding intellectual ethical concern to academic and educational world, meaning the teaching world, as well as to policymakers. In other words, knowledge production must have clear objectives and purposes. And here, I think, it's no stranger that I think a lot of sociologists or social scientists, historian, and name it, the thinker from Southeast Asia, right? In Indonesia, we have Sujat Moko. In Philippines, we have Renato Constantino. In Singapore, Malaysia, we have Sekusin Alatas. Yeah? In Thailand, maybe we have Subak Sivaraksa, right? Men and women and many more who wrote fantastic things and emphasizing on the need that the social sciences, humanity, or any form of knowledge production, right, that needs constant reevaluation, revision, and rethinking. So I'm sure we have heard about the COVID allows us to reset. Yeah, we are all waiting for the world to be reset. But somehow we didn't see that much. Yeah, it backs to normal. But what I think could be possible to reset the academia itself. The academia must come in full force. Yeah, seeing the problems of pandemic, seeing the problem of post-pandemic, and academia must address the issues at hand. Often we know that we speak about multidisciplinary and cross-disciplinary, but let's be real, we are yet to receive this very much. We're still underdeveloped in the sense. I mean, let's try, for example, in your faculty, social science and law, how much it intersects, right? Likewise, it's my society, my community, my campus, arts and social sciences, how it intersects. Yeah, I think that's still a great challenge. A strict demarcation and specialization in academic training, the social science seems to evade the humanities and the vice versa. As long as we continue this academic approach, the understanding and the complexity, the needs of society remain largely underdeveloped. Okay? And this is where we cannot expect any kind of reformistic and reconstructionist endeavor. So again, we need to reaffirm the humanities and social sciences, if not in the case of law, which is basically an intellectual as well as a moral ethical endeavor, while the opponents see it as an intrusion to scientific component. We know that there are some group within the academia not interested with this, saying that, well, academia must be the bastion for just theory making, right? Intellectualizing making. Don't intervene it with human concern. There are some pockets of it. So insisting on those detachments, some see the task of social scientists to remain so-called scientific neutrality, because they want academic rigor and worse, going for academic global ranking, but have no inkling to address local issues. I think that's the most tragic what we are facing today. So we celebrate academic excellence in global ranking and the like. We need to bear in mind to ensure that our humanities and social sciences should not entertain too long academic vanity just for the sake of scopus or such as for the sake of publication and for the sake of ranking, right? To a point that it becomes academic communication, and therefore it only intensified the domination of a neoliberal hegemony. Therefore, rethinking social science and humanities and law, for that matter, demands clarity. And ALATAS, among others, have said that this is actually our task in the production of knowledge, to raise and treatment of definite problems, 2, application of definite methodologies, 3, recognition of definite, recognizing the definite problems, 4, creation of definite concepts, and the relations with other branches of knowledge, which we call multidisciplinary and interactional approach. So recognizing the rethinking and humanities and the social sciences warrant us to, of course, in other words, I rephrase those, reformulate our own research agenda and questions, no longer being dictated by centers of metropole centers in Euro-America. Our research agenda must come from our own, not to be dictated by academic imperialism and so on. 2, design research methodology of our own, reaffirm the purpose of it, reimagine or blending the local and foreign perspective, give recognition to our intellectual corpus, our own backyard, which I think still very much lacking, and realign the targeted audience where our research would benefit. In other words, addressing local communities. So COVID-19, there's a lesson for us to learn. What I've noted, interestingly, one of the most responsive and one of the most sensitive group, or one of the most group that are effective in addressing this problem of COVID-19 during when it was first emerged and until today, are friends from critical literacy circles, right? Sometimes even social sciences move quite slowly, right? Because sometimes we think about, how we want to get funding and so on. But it's not a problem there, but it seems that I noted that Henry Giro and friends from the critical literacy group, I think, move very fast in seeing this problem. And I'd like to give a few examples of how friends from critical literacy, which normally in social sciences we ignore them. Okay? And look at this, is how Henry Giro framed this issue. The coronavirus pandemic pulled back the curtain to reveal the power of brutal neoliberalism and the global financial market. The political and economic pandemic not only eroded the democratic ideals of equality and popular sovereignty, but also created modes of governance that deracinated the social safety net and the public health system. Although he very much speaking in terms of the American context, it also applies to some extent in our case. A market-driven system that celebrates profit over human needs left behind a hollowed-out government unable to provide an effective response to the most serious challenges posed by the pandemic. It's very interesting for you to see how in many Euro-American contexts, the hospital cannot, privatized hospital cannot function to deal with COVID-19. And thanks to some country in Asia which still stick less with what they call it, privatization of the health system, they are able to manage it better. Right? Countries like Vietnam, China, able to manage better than some European countries who have already privatized their hospitals. The moment you allow public amenities like health system, right, only to be in the hands of the private sector, we are in trouble. COVID-19 taught us that lesson. So something like this too, when he says that there's a need to develop a new political language and mode of identification and a crisis of citizenship connected with crisis of education and crisis of globalization is situated within the crisis of power. Friends, let's ask together, who should think about all this, if not the academia, if not social sciences and law, right? We must ask what kind of society we want in the future. How do we want to live? And who will be the agents to address this issue? It is crucial, therefore, to develop a pedagogical practices that address the underlying causes of poverty, class domination, environmental destruction, right? Racial supremacies, resurgent racism, and so on. You see and we see all these very dehumanizing practices during COVID-19. Right? How minorities being treated, right? The poor were being just pushed away. Yeah, those without any social security for to pay hospital bills were just rejected from hospitals and so on. These are major crises in many countries, if not a global crisis. And therefore, it's about time for us in academia to think about this. Let's ask some basic question. To what extent that we have really in academia talk about the ravaging consequences of neoliberalism economy that affected not just the economy, but also the way we conduct our education system, our health system, and many more. So the damaging effect of pandemic in a neoliberal context, we can see in the economic political structures, in the social institution and relations, and in intellectual and moral imagination. I think the third point is very important. This is what happened exactly in academia. Right? We don't even have an intellectual and moral imagination to fight against this dehumanized condition. In other words, the pandemic realities provide us the opportunity to undertake serious overview or rethinking of how we have undertaken our humanities, social sciences, exact sciences, and technologies, including communication and health sciences. If we see this pandemic as simply as medical problem, which is not simply medical problem, we actually have not understood the existing crisis. It is ideological, economic, political, social, educational crisis, and many more. So in that case, I want to highlight that human suffering matters. This is not about some religious exposition. No, I think this is basic recognition that we must pay attention. Right? When COVID-19 it's spread rapidly, we see how the state of health facilities, including the health personnel, how much we have invested in our health system. It is actually one of the lowest in our national budget in most countries. Right? And therefore, our hospitals have not fully equipped. Our doctors and nursing are working very hard to address, to man the hospitals. And worse still, many sectors of our health institution were being privatized. So therefore, only the rich can have access to health security, but not many others. Those with the government are just given paracetamol, for that matter. And all these tell us much about the preparedness of the government and the healthcare system. And then we look at the immigration policy, how these authorities treated those immigrants, let's say in Malaysia, in Thailand, in India, or even in America, how they treated immigrants coming into their country. The homelessness in urban cities, including urban poverty in densely populated districts. The lockdown, we can see how families suffered. Big families in small house, cramped, not able to go out. And for this time, we also see many what we call domestic violence. Because especially poor women subjected to domestic violence at home during COVID. So all these things tell us about one problem after another. COVID-19 is not just about that virus. It tells about a system breaking down. Citizens with no social security or health insurance are in the majority. We see also the network of social services for the poor and the existence of food bank The living condition of migrant workers within our midst, they are part of our workforce, but they are outside our moral security system. And worse, outside our moral universe. That's even more tragic. When someone is outside our moral universe, it means that we do not count them as human beings. The fragility of employment sector with high dependence on foreign workers, maybe Indonesia do not face this. Yeah? Countries like Singapore, Malaysia face this, even to some extent Thailand. The high level of food import, over-reliance on overseas supply. Right? Most significantly, the rise of xenophobia manifesting in ethnocentric claim, stigma against foreigners, yeah, and these are very disturbing. And COVID-19, and this brings me to a point of COVID-19 and xenophobia. Yeah. Xenophobia, yeah, is one of the most striking manifestations during COVID-19. When we close our borders, we fear people, and we want to chase out people who we are not comfortable within our zone. Yeah. So when it first came, the pandemic caused rapid anxiety because there was no vaccine then. Yeah. So there was this another challenge, not just about xenophobia, but also infodemic. There's another problem too. Yeah. Pandemic and infodemic, where there is fear, rumors, and stigma, there are key challenges during COVID-19. Yeah. And this is already being acknowledged by World Health Organization, saying that pandemic and infodemic comes together. Yeah? And of course, what we see, blaming epidemics on foreign others. Yeah? Especially in Euro-America, or even in our case, we think that those people from the third world are the one that caused all these things. Fake coronavirus cures sold online. This is another form of infodemic. Yeah? Yeah? And we simply label them as simply like Chinese or Wuhan virus or Indian variant and so on and so forth. This is a form of racism. So if you look at xenophobia, it manifests through stigma, racism, moral exclusion, and isolation. I will not go into detail because I think I just want to highlight some of this problem. And my question here is how we in academia are able to see this as an issue, and how do we reset again, reconstruct again the purpose and our function of our academia. Yeah. All right, so I will not go into this meaning of what xenophobia are and blah, blah, blah. I think this is much well known. Yeah, I will not go through this, but this is the point that I need to highlight. Yeah. And then, of course, let me just read this one. First is the rising of isolationism and xenophobia. Isolation means we just shut our border and we think that we can live on our own. A turn inward in many high-income nations, especially in the United States and European. A nationalistic mindset with leaders telling us that global engagement is not our responsibility and proposing retrenchment of our commitment to global health security, so on and so forth. This is very disturbing. If we allow this in post-pandemic period, all of us will be in trouble, right? Xenophobia comes with blatant racism, right? Already when the economy is not doing well, we have already looking at immigrants as one who stole our job, right? Immigrants cause crime. Immigrants, the burden to national social services. Immigrants, the threat to society. Immigrants, and so on and so forth, right? During COVID-19, it further aggravates the problem, right? Maybe the case of Indonesia, you don't see much foreign workers working in your midst, yeah? But imagine Indonesian working in other countries. Yeah, they were subjected to this. Yeah? All right, and then we have stigma, right? Richard Horton once said that hate is a health issue, racism is a health issue, xenophobia is a health issue. Hence, therefore, the need for medical professionals. Yeah? I think medical professionals need to see that this is not just about medical issue. Members of medical community prefer to avoid become entangled with divisive issues that seems to be outside the scope of medical concepts. But their voices are needed to confront xenophobia, rejection of science, and populist hostility towards expertise. If we don't help our friends in the medical community with critical social sciences and humanities, right? They are lost too. I think we need to go hand in hand working with the medical community to address this. And I think this is a function the function of social sciences and humanities. Yeah? So therefore, ladies and gentlemen, this is where I'm trying to say here, the need to recognize that social suffering matters. Right? Recognizing the propensity of xenophobia is also to identify the forces conspiring to promote suffering. If we do this, we stand a chance of discerning the causes of extreme suffering and also the forces that out some at risk for human rights abuses, while others are shielded from risks. Yeah? And I think many examples from various countries can exemplify this. Yeah? And therefore, we need, at the end of the day, once we talk about this social or human suffering, it demands then our compassion. Compassion must be part and parcel of our social sciences and humanities imagination. Yeah? The value, and let me quote from this Ian Wilkinson and Arthur Kahneman, the value of social science should be sought in its involvement in the promotion of real acts of care in society, but also that it is through the act of caring for others that we stand to grasp how social life is made possible and sustained. We take the provocation of social suffering as a spur towards alignment of social inquiry and the pedagogy of caregiving. Our hope is to research and writing on social suffering to serve as a means to provoke critical public debate over forms of action required to realize humane social condition and global scale. If some of us still question whether this is interventionist or whether this go against the academic neutrality, I think such position is a lost position, right? I think it's a problematic. In fact, I would frankly say, I think it's an immoral position. If we take a stand that academia just need to be rational, scientific, and neutral. We seek to cultivate sociologists and anthropologists motivated by global humanitarian social concern, and more important, for these to result in real and effective practices of care for all people. This is our passion for society. Social sciences and humanities must have passion for society. What is most tragic is when we call ourselves sociologists, but we don't have passion for society. Sociology without society, right? So how then do we solve or mitigate these problems on challenges in post-pandemic reconstruction? There are many more, I'm just listing here, right? I need to go very fast on this, but let me go point by point. First, nurturing and promote critical discursive ideas and idioms in the public sphere, where the monstrosities of prejudice, structural violence, racism are discussed as part of social inquiry, right? If you read works like Cornel West, yeah, on the moral lens versus racial lens, you can see how the problem of racism, xenophobia that I've mentioned. Two, proactive position of institution of higher learning, which is our business, to promote research, especially linking on xenophobia, discrimination, and stigma. Okay? And this is where I think, just now I mentioned earlier, we should not be dictated by Euro-American centers, doing some research which has sometimes no concerns to us. Our concerns when we see our own problems here. I think this is where, for example, we see our ethnic minorities, especially the poor ones, during COVID-19, and we simply dismiss them as this and that, or as the cause of problems. Sociology of humanitarianism is given space to develop social inquiries that I've mentioned before. Third, involvement of medical sciences and healthcare with the critical social science perspectives I mentioned earlier. Four, the need of biosocial approach. It brings together biological and social sciences to develop an integrative collaborative response to the threat of this pandemic influenza. At that time, there was all talking about this, but I hope in post-pandemic, this kind of talk continue, right? It's not just during the crisis, but also after this. Fifth, social history of epidemics, pandemics, and so on. We need to take this as part and parcel of our imagination. For example, if you know about the what do you call it? tsunami in Aceh. Right? The tsunami in Aceh give us a lesson too, because there was no recorded learning from history. If we have recorded, because there were such great tsunami that happened in this part of the world, but we don't have that imagination, right? We have not recorded it down, right? But when it happened, we thought that, well, this is the first time, which is not, right? So likewise for the crisis like this pandemic, yeah, we need to know what were some of the earlier pandemics that were happening in this world, yeah, and of course the need to mitigate the stigma and via conscious planning and managing the pandemic itself via capacity building, yeah, support social status of frontliners, which I think we have been doing quite well in the sense, call for government greater transparency when it comes to information and so on, optimism in human efforts, yeah, non-pharmacological intervention, yeah, which means the need to mitigate those stigma and racism, the need to rethink and reconceptualize our notion of citizenship. I will not elaborate this point because maybe not be so much a concern to Indonesia, but in the case of us, Singapore and Malaysia, maybe, yeah, or even in Euro-American countries. Yeah. And at the discursive front, the need to correct the tendency to conflate globalization and migration, which later came that later. Sorry. Yeah. All right. And then, of course, the role of medical and public health fraternity circle. Yeah. I think this is, I have mentioned earlier that I think we need to bring, yeah, the role of social sciences here to bring medical community and public health fraternities into within this discussion. This must be done in the post-pandemic so that we are prepared in the future. The need for international coordination. Right?
Pardon me, Dr. Azhar, we only have 10 minutes for your presentation. Okay, thank you.
Yes, I'm finishing soon. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And then, of course, the narratives of hope and optimism. That after all, when we see a problem, there must be a kind of hope and optimism that this thing can be solved. If we are just in the state of despair and the state of fatalism, we think that this is simply God testing on us. We will not be planning things, right? I mean, that sort of attitude, yeah, is very disturbing. Right? And of course, here, social sciences in knowledge production, therefore, we could no longer afford knowledge and sciences diverse or simply academic. Taking part in the community and global engagement must be part of our concern. More support and research and educational programs to address human suffering. We have not given budget on this much. We are busy with other fundings, yeah, to create theory A and B and C, but we have not addressed basic human sufferings. Yeah? And at the end of the day, we need a pedagogy of healing. That's what we need. If we accept that civilization are fragile and we need to agree that the principal threats to our species are deficiencies in human political, economic, social, and knowledge system, surely the conclusion is that we must redefine health. Health is not only health of individuals and the population, it is also the health of our civilization too. That we might come to call planetary health or global health for that matter. Yeah. So at the end of the day, knowledge production should come back again for its basic question: social sciences and humanities, or even law, for whom? Right. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to quote last from our friends in the in the cultural literacy circle, Ini Aikioli and Donaldo Macedo sisters. The coronavirus pandemic unveiled an obscene degree of inequality and exploitation of workers, and also the contempt that the rulers have for the people's dignity and lives. Against all this, defending public institutions such as public school, university, public and free healthcare, social security, housing, and the food for all, and recognizing the right, land, territory, and cultural identity are part of a major struggle in defense of all forms of life. Co-constructing a new normal that breaks the continuum of history is a challenge that must be urgently be faced by educators and all progressive forces. And I think the conference that being organized by Universitas Negeri Surabaya points to this direction. And I think we should all support the research done in your campus along this line. On that note, thank you very much. Sekian, terima kasih.
Thank you very much, Dr. Azhar, for your wonderful presentation. We get a new insight from your presentation about the COVID-19 lesson to us, problem and challenging in the post-pandemic. And you also mentioned tsunami in Aceh as historical pandemic, also xenophobia and racism. Okay, thank you so much. And now we are moving to the second speaker on this session, Professor Aisyah.
Hello.
Hello. Okay, thank you. Thank you for your time and your kindness for waiting your session. Before we start your presentation, let me introduce you by sharing your biography. Professor Aisyah Endapalupi is a professor at the State University of Surabaya and the Education and Culture Attached of the Republic of Indonesia in the Philippines. Previously, she was also the attached of Indonesian Education and Culture in Singapore. All right, Professor Aisyah, it is now your time to present your material. You may deliver your presentation in 40 minutes, please. The time is yours.
Thank you, Ms. Moderator. Thank you so much. I would like to access for this my presentation. Thank you. In the first slide, please. Okay. Before I starting for the presentation, I would like to information that the committee. Thank you for the chance that I want to this occasion with the same time I say hello with our colleagues in the Faculty of the Social Science and Law at the Universitas Negeri Surabaya. Yeah. Thank you for the second international conference on the social science and law in this year, 2022. Next, please. Is talking about the rethinking the transformations of the society in the post-pandemic in the Philippines. For this, I would like to introduce myself for next. I'm Aisyah Endapalupi. I'm Education and Culture Attaché for the second period before this duty. I as the same task as Education and Culture Attaché in Singapore, like Ms. Moderator mentioned. This is our page, my WhatsApp, our email, Instagram. You can ask anything about the education in the Philippines. Okay, next please. Just for this, the slide show the positions of the Philippines in the map of Southeast Asia. This is the islands of the Indonesia, and then the where the Philippines on the map. Next, the accreditations of country not only in the Philippines but also in the Palau and the Marshall Islands. So we can show the map, the legends. If we want to go to the Palau and the Marshall Islands and to Majuro, like that, how many times we need to fly by plane. Next, please. I would like to a little bit background about the Philippines. You can see in that slide. And right now, our ambassador, the Republic of Indonesia's ambassador in the Philippines, is Bapak Legend TNI Purnawirawan Agus Wijoyo. That's already appointed since 1 July, 30 June, June 30 this year. Bapak Agus Wijoyo is asked for the Gubernur Lemhanas. Yeah, Gubernur Lemhanas. Next, please. Okay, this one the first about the introduce the role of the social economy and its actor have played in the COVID-19 crisis. It further explains the current challenge faced by the social economy and highlights for the selected social policy instrument and recommendations to support social economy actors in their efforts to repair and transform society. Right? We can show that they are driven by a mission of serving the common good, protecting the general interest, and increasing individual and community welfare by organizing their activity in a different. For next, we want to show about the social economy organization implementing a specific business model, a characteristic by the two elements. We can see that one element they address societal needs, and the second one is they are organized differently compared to mainstream economic actors. Next, please. When we have the question, why does social economic business models consider unique? As we can say that the social economy business models are considered unique in a way that they mobilize multiple resources that are available locally, apply sustainable operating practices, and adopt inclusive and democratic governance, are locally encourage, facilitate cooperation and social innovation. Next, the first, the activities and services that a range of social economy organization provide, like example, in the health sector, social services, and the work integration mitigate the direct impact of the crisis, especially for the most vulnerable groups, helping society to cope with the crisis. And the second one, some specific features on the social economic business models increase a social economic organization's ability to overcome difficulties during a crisis. The next, please. It's about the capacity to increase economy and social resiliency is linked to the two main roles that the social economy plays in the economic system. This is a repair and a transform. Okay, for the next, we are talking about how social economy in mitigating impact of the COVID-19 crisis and complementing government's responses. As the ones is during different periods of crisis, it is highly valued in the process of the cooperating and solidarity. As the current public health epidemic is not far different from the previous crisis that humans encountered in cooperation, social economic organizations are particularly successful in reaching out to vulnerable groups and reintegrating them into society, thus filling some of the voids left by the state and the market. Next, this is to explain about the recent survey of social enterprises in the United Kingdom has confirmed that despite intense difficulties to keep operating for many social enterprises, it's around 96% of respondents said that they are actively supporting their community, staff, or beneficiaries to deal with the COVID-19 on top of managing their social enterprises. Next, this is about the providing a range of crucial services. We have the since medical capacity was strengthened supporting And then the second one, adjusting their operations, etc. Until the fourth one, helping the government cope with the crisis with the concrete bottom-up solutions. Next, this is among the many contributions in the Philippines of the social science research to population health. This is the highlight. You can see together in the slide. Next, please. Okay, for the next, my slide is talking about the policy. The policy next, one of the assets of the social economy, it is the potential to bring system change. Social economic actors are close to grassroots communities and are among the first to spot change in the society, including behavioral change. Social economic actors have proven their ability to spot early trends such as the demand for fair trade products as well as organic and green products, or support with recycling. The COVID-19 crisis provides an opportunity to scale up the social economy, so it can play a greater role in the transforming society. Actions like contribute to fulfilling the sustainable development SDG. Next, please. This is can be to we can be to see and the in the slides. It's about how to provide financial and the increased public procurement schemes with the focus on a sustainable and inclusive social procurement. Next, please. This is the third one. It's develop about the common vision and promote the collaborations with the social economic, which one the representative of the social economic organizations could be an asset in the development of the number of policies involved from the early stage. And during the COVID-19 crisis has demonstrated the value of the social economic organization, yet relatively little data exists on the impact they have created. Next. When we have talking about the social welfare, next, differentiate impact on the social economic organization as economic impact of the COVID-19 crisis on social economic organizations varies greatly on a number of the factors such as on the sector of different activities. The COVID-19 outbreak had a substantial impact on the social economic actors that push them to adjust the way of the operations in ensuring cash flow and also to be able to identify new opportunities to be able to stay afloat. Next, this is can be to what the reason why the social economic actors were more impacted that firm in general. Next, please. Sorry, maybe I will more fasting because I have more slides in this afternoon. When we're talking about the social economic and benefit societies, both during and after COVID-19 crisis in 4 spheres. This is the number 1 is economic, the number 2 society, number 3 is about the citizens on individuals, and the last one is territory. We are talking about the way forward. The COVID-19 pandemic has driven numbers change to economic activity and the way society function, and the social economic organizations have proven to be the important element in mitigating the effect of the pandemic, and the current situations offers momentum to take bold courageous decisions to build a more sustainable and inclusive future, and a mix of policy measures is needed to help social economic organizations survive in the short term and help shape our societies in a more sustainable and inclusive way to the future. Next, right now we are talking about the education or the impact of the pandemic of the education in the Philippines. Next please, okay. During the start of the COVID-19 pandemic, at the 2 years ago, 2020, Department of Education and Commission of the Higher Education suspended face-to-face school and shift the mode of education into the online education as we know today. Like this. For the next, we have the online learning system during 2 years ago. That the COVID-19 is very highly risk, and until 2021, there are a few students that we have the 2022.44 million students have the registered in public school, and 2.13 million in private school, and etc. You can see in this slide. Next, this is the comparisons of practical learning. During this time, there was a notable number of private school students transferring to public schools. The Department of Education has applied distance learning modalities to ensure learning continuity. This involves technology and internet connections, of course. This is the slide. It's during this time, there were a notable number of private school students transferring to public schools in the Philippines. Yeah. In the number 2, the Department of Education, we call DepEd, has applied distance learning modalities to ensure learning continuity, which involves technology and internet connections. Which one, like students can be to continue their education in remote setup through online or offline platforms. Can be to TV, television, radio, and printed modules, as we can see from the infographic here in the picture in here. Next, this is number 3 and number 4. The funding included additional new laptops, desktops, and electronic devices, as given internet access for teachers to be able to easy their finance in the students for the learning. Next, please. This is Philippines about the foreign students holding like a 9F visa have not been granted permissions to enter the Philippines during the COVID-19 pandemic. But foreign students in the Philippines are still given permissions to leave the Philippines and return to their home country. Like this. For next, DepEd Secretary Leonor Briones and may encourage all public and private schools to return to holding in person classes for the upcoming school year 2022 until 2023. As of July, DepEd to have the practical education be 100% fully implemented in face-to-face classes. However, they would be blended set up, of course, wherein there are days when students will physically to present in school, and some days when students will be allowed to learn at home. And next, it is as the Commission of Higher Education said the Wednesday, July 13, 2022, this year, that it will be not required all schools to shift to in-person classes. setting colleges and the university to decide on the appropriate mode of learning applicable to them. And some degree programs really need a lot of face-to-face, especially skill-based programs like doctors, nurses, and health degrees, while other programs can be delivered via flexible learning. This is about the Philippine immigration policy regarding foreign students in this year. Next, please. This is we can show in this slide during peak COVID-19. It's around 2020 until 2021 in the Philippines. We can see in the class, it's so empty elementary public school classroom. Yeah, nearly majority of the schools have been empty. And the right side, we can show that the elementary school in the Philippines studies used inside in the jeepney. No public transportation to running well in that pandemic. So when the jeepney parking can be to use for the learning inside. This is inside in the jeepney. For the next slide, we can see that the city government of the Taguig, as the Senator Renato Companero Cayetano from the Memorial Science and Technology High School teacher to assist students in blended learning when the campus with COVID-19 protocols such as wearing of face shield, face mask, social distancing, and table shield barrier, like we can see. And November 15, 2021, last year, plastic barrier are installed between learners of the Lacerna Integrated School in the Nabat. Next, this is the example of the situation in the class of the Mapua right now in the July 2022 this year. This is Mapua University, just wearing the face mask, no barrier anymore, including for the right figure on the elementary schools are expected to enter on the Monday, but there's any distancing to see just the days before. Yeah. Okay. From the next slide is lastly students from the TESDA is pasteurizing bottles of mango jam during their class on food processing. And the next, we show that we have the Department of Education by numbers. They are around 60,429 schools that provide basic education to learners, including Philippine schools overseas. Next, this is the number of the school year during the pandemic, 2019 until 2020, the highest number of the school offering basic education. And we can show the numbering, the data. Next, please. This is, I would like to inform just a little bit about the bilateral relationship we already to have. Because I'm a lecturer of the Universitas Negeri Surabaya, I invite our colleges in the Faculty of the Science, Social Science and Law to improving the collaborations with the many universities in the Philippines. We can show that we have the umbrella of the MOU between the basic and secondary education, and this paragraph that can be to explain the component of basic and secondary educations between Indonesia and Philippines. Next, please. This is between our ministry with the higher education corporation. And then the next, this is the MOU about the corporations in the field of the technical professional educations and training. Next, this is Universitas Negeri Surabaya Corporations with Tarlac Agriculture University is already to have the MOU, so we can need to apply to implement to making the MOA Memorandum of Agreement. Next, this is the University of the Perpetual Health System Delta Polino Campus. We are with the Universitas Negeri Surabaya have the MOU too. Next, please. And then the UNMESA with the PUP, Philippines University, Philippines of the Polytechnic University of the Philippines. I want to offering the PUP have the College of Law. Yeah, College of Law. This is was established in the 2001 and award to a postgraduate degree in Bachelor of Law, which generally does not award bachelor degree in the Philippines. Our PUP is one of the best law school in the Philippines and has produced a number of cases in the bar exam. Next, this is I would like to the offering the potential of the Universitas Negeri Surabaya Corporation with the top 5 law faculties university in the Philippines. Number 1 is the University of the Philippines, Diliman College of Law, and the next please. This number 2 is the Ateneo de Manila University School of Law. Yeah, and number 3 is Zambeda University College of Law. Yeah, and number 4 is the University of the Santo Tomas, and the last is the University of San Carlos College of Law. These are the 5 top Philippines university with the study program of law and social science. Okay, this is my complete list of law schools in the Philippines. You can be, if you want to complete a list of other law schools in the Philippines, you may scan the QR code. Yeah, the QR code. Okay, thank you so much for the listening to my lecture. Thank you so much. It's in the Tagalog, it's maraming salamat po sa inyong lahat. Thank you. The floor is now open for the questions. Back to Ms. Moderator. Thank you. Selamat siang.
Thank you very much for your wonderful presentation, Professor Enda Falupi.
Welcome.
Now we get a new insight from your presentation about the contribution of social science and how social economy is mitigating impacts of COVID-19 crisis and complementing government response. Okay, all right then. We are now continuing our session into the question and answer session. Actually, we have so many questions for both speaker, Dr. Azhar and Professor Aisyah. Unfortunately, because we have limited time, so we choose 3 questions for this session. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I have already had 3 questions here. The first one coming from, we have question from chat box. I will read first. Wait. Come from Putri Aisyah. The question for Dr. Azhar. Dr. Azhar, thank you for such an enlightening speech. I see the pandemic is a turning point for every area to undergo significant modification in order the form make to survive. Education is one area that must be transformed. According to what Dr. Azhar has said, knowledge production should contribute to social welfare. I'm fascinated by the term contribution because it might have several meanings. The first refers to a direct contribution, whereas the second refers to an indirect contribution. Okay, today she find many researchers and academics who are concerned with indirect contributions, such as publishing articles in reputable publication. Direct contribution to society, on the other hand, appear to be a secondary requirement. Dr. Azhar, what's your perspective on this matter? Or perhaps how academics and researchers can contribute to social welfare either directly or indirectly? So, Dr. Azhar, are you ready for answer?
All right. I think that's a long question, but
Yeah.
I think the answer could be put very simply. Any academics have a task of one, of course, teaching. This is one of our job. Yeah, academic teach. 2, academic do research. And 3, academic do professional consultancy or community engagement. Right? So your job, our job, can be both direct and indirect. The question here, what kind of question that we want to do, in our research, teaching, and community engagement profile. If we don't have a sense of a community or global problem, right? We just living in the world of a theory of our own, to be just specialized in our area of studies, we cannot contribute, whatever directly or indirectly. When I mentioned just now, I'm not criticizing those people publish in journals or international publication. I'm not criticizing that. I'm saying that the obsession is not simply for just to write for international ranking. We write because we have a social global mission, right? You can always write there, but make sure the thing that we do is not dictated by the journal cartel. It must be the problem of our community. That must come first, the problem of humanity. That's my answer. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Doctor, for your answer about the question.
Thank you.
And then the second one is from Jojo. Yeah, it's come from chat box. Thank you so much, Dr. Azhar. It's for Dr. Azhar again. Thank you so much, Dr. Azhar. My name is Jojo. This interest what you call that pandemic COVID not only impact health, physical, but also health mental issue. Xenophobia like in America. And then impact for phobia immigrant like Asian people, because she have seen that the news that they think COVID-19 is come from Asian people. She thinks it's related. If we saw from individual freedom, what you think is the best for solve this problem when individual freedom can impact that? Is there any relation governmental system for this impact? Okay,
well,
Dr.
yeah. Thank you, Jojo. I think I will frame my question. It's not so much about here whether the issue is individual or communitarian rights. Yeah? Let's not go into hair-splitting and philosophical question here. The question here is a concrete one. It's about human suffering. But during COVID itself, we see a lot of things which is breaking down. Health system is breaking down. We see also there's a discrepancy between how the poor and the rich being treated differently, right? The privileged one seems that they are protected by many things. They are the first one who get the vaccine. They are the first one who get medical attention. They are the first one who got what we call it protection by the law, right? They are not subjected to the thorough COVID protocol because they are privileged. They can do birthday party, whereas the poor people are being told to stay at home and cannot even find decent job to feed their family, right? So I think here it's not about individual rights and so on, right? When it's a kind of pandemic, all of us are subjected to it, yeah. But the pandemic itself shows the great discrepancy. And this must be corrected. If we repeat again, it shows that our sense of humanity is is a wrong one. That's the only thing I can answer to this. Thank you.
Okay, Dr. Azhar, thanks for your answer about the question. And then come from her name is Dita. Her name is Dita. She asked for Professor Aisyah. Hello, Professor Aisyah.
Yes.
Okay, thank you for your wonderful presentation. And then the question is, what is strategy of university in facing the globalization of education, so that they become internationally competitive university, but still prioritize local wisdom? So, Professor Aisyah,
can you repeat the questions, Mrs. Moderator? Priority of what?
Priority of local wisdom. Okay, Professor Aisyah, to answer the question, please.
In the chat box, I would like to read.
No.
Not too clear. Mana Ati?
I think I will. I will type first.
Yes. Please.
Okay. Okay.
Because I'm not clear enough. I hear
Okay.
a chat about
What is the strategy of university? The globalization of education. So
in the chat box,
they become international competitive, but still local wisdom. Okay. Dr. Aisyah, sorry, Professor Aisyah.
Yes,
You can.
I see.
Okay.
Strategy university in Philippines.
Yeah.
Okay.
Still prioritize local wisdom.
Okay.
Are you ready to answer the question, Professor?
Yes, Miss. So they become international competitive, but still priorities local wisdom. Actually, in the university in the Philippines, not have the evaluations for the accreditations to be the international international accreditations, or in between that university. I think it's many university in Philippines. It's also the keep for the to keep for the priority for the local wisdom, but they for the university alumni is already to prepare to going abroad, and for the pursue study on the other university in another country. That's as long as I know, that prepares the students like that. Back to Miss Moderator.
Okay, thank you so much, Professor Aisyah,
Maybe,
for your.
I want to add my answer about the motivation for the internationalization, including commercial advantage. knowledge and language acquisitions, enhancing the curriculum with the international content, yeah,
Okay.
and many others.
Okay. Okay, that's great.
I think it's enough, clear enough, my answer. Hopefully. Hopefully, or didn't understand anymore.
Hopefully that understand.
Okay.
Okay, thank you so much, Professor, for your response about that question.
Welcome.
So, ladies and gentlemen, we finally come to the end of this session. Let's give a big round of applause for Dr. Azhar Ibrahim and Professor Aisyah Palupi. Finally, I would like to thank the speakers for the informative and interesting presentation, and all the participants for being a wonderful participation during this session. I remind again, please don't forget to fill the present form. The link is available in the chat box. Hopefully we have another chance to see each other again in the future. Thank you very much for your attention. Good morning, everyone.
Ladies and gentlemen, the next agenda is a break session.
Then, we would like to inform you that our parallel session will start at 1 p.m. Jakarta time. For all the presenter, please join the breakout room 5 minutes before the parallel session starts.
Ladies and gentlemen, the next agenda is a break session.
Then, we would like to inform you that our agenda for parallel session will start at 1 p.m. Jakarta time. For all the presenter, please join the breakout room 5 minutes before the parallel session starts.
Udah jam 1.
Jam 1. Sebelum 5 menit sebelum jam 1 harus join.
Ini udah ya berarti. Ngomong tutup aja deh.
I'm Professor Bambang Julianto, Vice Rector for Academic Affairs. International Chain Conference is our commitment to encourage academicians and faculty members to enhance innovation and collaboration through research. The International Chain Conference provides a space for scholars, researchers, and practitioners to share and exchange their novel insights and inspire new direction of research and application relevant with the post-pandemic situation. And also, it is expanding network among scholars and strengthening institutional academic collaboration. It is in line with university's strategic plan that by 2025, we hope to be a recognized teaching university in the region. Welcome to State University of Surabaya. Universitas Negeri Surabaya, UNESA. We are committed to enhancing our academic contribution and collaboration to build sustainable development for our community and humanity. Thank you.
This International Conference on Education and Innovation is a conference held annually by the Faculty of Education of UNESA, Universitas Negeri Surabaya. This is to facilitate academics from all over Indonesia and discuss critical ideas related to the development of education both in Asia and the world. Underlying phenomena, events, data this year's each theme is inspiring global collaboration for future innovation and resilience in facing education challenge during the pandemic. And the second reason for choosing this theme is because we are aware that globalization is a major issue in this era. Moreover, the world is being hit by the pandemic that causes significant change to occur in all aspects of life, including education.
MISEC 2022 actually is international conference. This conference is conducted regularly. It's like an annual event for the Faculty of Mathematics and Natural Sciences. For the big impact, we want to contribute in the international academic research. So this event actually, I hope, can have a significant impact to the development of research in not only in natural sciences, but also in education.
This year is the third time for Universitas Negeri Surabaya to host ICCSAL International Conference following its success in the previous years. Currently, I am pleased to inform you that there has been an increase in both quality and quantity of the papers that will be presented in the third ICCSAL 2022. Therefore, I trust that in the future, this conference will be able to grow into one prestigious annual conference by actively collaborating with various professional associations in the field of cultural studies and applied linguistics.
IEEE Indonesia section through Communication Society Indonesian section will support ICVEE. Accepted paper will be submitted for inclusion into IEEE Explore subject to meeting IEEE Explore scope and quality requirement. With this conference, communication and collaboration can be established between researchers and university in improving world-class research publications.
The name of conference is International Conference on Social Science and Law. The theme of the conference is Rethinking the Transformation of Society in Pandemic Era, Contribution of Social Science, Education, and Law. We choose the theme, the Rethinking the Transformation of a Society in Post-Pandemic Era, because we have seen that our society, not only in Indonesia, but around the world, we face the problem, namely the post-pandemic. How the society has changed after this pandemic situation.
This conference is organized by the Institute of Research and Community Services Universitas Negeri Surabaya to accommodate all researchers and academics in Universitas Negeri Surabaya. The theme of this conference was chosen because we want to strengthen innovation in research and community services in the post-pandemic area after the COVID outbreak. And we are also inviting academic, researchers, and practitioners to submit mostly case studies of practice, theoretical papers, empirical studies, and other papers that address any topic. within the broad areas of social, humanities, science, and technology. And the purpose and the aim of the conference is to accommodate all researcher and community services activities in order to increase international publication in accordance with the key performance indicator Universitas Negeri Surabaya.
A campus from the best city in Indonesia, a city with a long history of struggle and heroism. Welcome to Universitas Negeri Surabaya, a university with superior accreditation. Founded in 1964 as a teaching institute for education under the name IKIP Surabaya, to be an educational institution that carries the mandate as university that produces educators. Currently, UNESA, established as a center for education development, preservation of traditional arts, sports science, and inclusive services for people with disabilities. Growing to be a leading university, UNESA now manages 7 faculties consisting of 64 undergraduate study programs, 10 vocational programs, and 31 postgraduate study programs. The main campus is located in Lidawetan, Surabaya, with 7 main buildings. They are Rectorate Building, Board of Learning Development and Quality Assurance Building, and 3 faculty buildings including Faculty of Science Education, Faculty of Language and Art, Faculty of Sports Science, as well as postgraduate programs. And here is the oldest campus, Ketintang area. There are 4 faculty buildings and 1 vocational program building that includes Faculty of Mathematics and Natural Sciences, Faculty of Engineering, Faculty of Economics and Business, Faculty of Social Sciences and Law, and vocational programs. Managing 2 fields of study, education-based and non-educational study programs, UNESA is committed to improving the quality of education, fostering scientific traditions in research, promoting the spirit of community service, collaborating with stakeholders, and performing excellent, transparent, and accountable services. Reaching independent autonomic higher studies, welcoming the next step of UNESA as a legal entity higher education institution.
Selamat datang di Universitas Negeri Surabaya. Kami dengan bangganya mengajak Anda untuk lebih dekat dan mengenal tentang UNESA. Kami terus berkomitmen tidak hanya menyelenggarakan pendidikan terbaik bagi tenaga pendidik profesional masa depan, juga sangat berfokus untuk menciptakan lulusan yang berkarakter, tangguh, kreatif, inovatif, dan mampu berkolaborasi pada siapapun, berbudaya, yang humanis, dengan spesifikasi yang unggul dalam hal seni, olahraga, dan pendidikan disabilitas yang komprehensif.
Education is not only the key of our existence, but also the spirit of struggle of UNESA. Becoming one of the campuses that organize teacher professional education programs that produce professional educators, UNESA is committed to organizing various empowerment programs as a stimulus to develop faculty members and students, research development, and innovative product as the solution to problems in the society. UNESA, House of the Champions. A supportive ecosystem in producing competitive and well-qualified human resources with global perspective to compete on both national and international levels. In order to create a healthy learning ecosystem, UNESA continue to provide the best service with various quality facilities, national or international scale, in the field of education, science, and sports. UNESA continuously commit to provide an outstanding service and friendly for people with disabilities. Supported with adequate facilities and infrastructure, a competitive environment, and a continuously moving to create a conservation campus. Futsal International Sports Arena, Container Students Dormitory, Sports Center, Language Center, Geraha UNESA, Student Activity Center, Jogging Track, Equestrian Field, International Basketball Arena, Student Activity Units, Art Development, Character and Personality Building, Sports, Outdoor Activities.
UNESA, 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 UNESA,
UNESA.
UNESA, satu langkah di depan.